And for this, I'd like to invite Mr. Sundaresan to the stage to begin the panel discussion on incorporating environmental and social criteria in procurement process. Mr. Sundaresan, a passionate advocate for sustainability with over 20 years of expertise in sustainable procurement and supply chain management, he currently leads the Center of Excellence for Sustainability at a Fortune 500 company, focusing on digital innovation to drive decarbonization, human rights in supply chains, and sustainable KPIs. Sundarsan is an expert in digitizing carbon footprints across Scope 1, 2, and 3, ensuring compliance with global ESG regulations. Previously, he led procurement at Cognizant, delivering value across 6 continents. A technology enthusiast, Sundarsan has received numerous awards for his contribution to sustainable procurement and innovation. Mr. Sundaresan, the virtual floor is yours. Please introduce our distinguished panelist and kick off what I'm sure will be a thought-provoking session. You are mute, sir.
I'm sorry. Is it okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you, Annie. Thank you for all the organizers, PPP, AI, ISM, World Bank, and all the organizers. I'm not naming them. And I can assure you that we have a very enriched panel here. With you won't be really, disappointed. There's so much of experience and diverse category. We have 3 speakers here. Let me introduce Kai Hoffman to start with. Hi, Kai. Welcome. And Kai comes with very long experience and a specialist. He's done masters in urban management and architecture, and he worked in 10 different countries, around 5 different continents. And he's currently heading 9 Asian regions within German Society for International Cooperation. And he's somebody who's an authority on circularity. We heard Marcus talking about bringing circularity in procurement, and he's somebody, an authority in that, who's done this. And probably that's the way of life for him. And somebody who has done at a public procurement as well, which is more harder to do. So, so a very warm welcome, Kai, once again. Look forward to hearing, cherishing your knowledge with others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second speaker is John Kanai. You're there, John? Okay. John is someone who's the chairman of a board, who has been in Africa, who's an authority designated by the Pan-African community, distinguished procurement and supply chain professionals, brings 30 years of experience, both in public as well as private. He has been through with companies like Coca-Cola, GlaxoSmithKline, Beecham, and so on and so forth. In Eastern Africa, comes with depth of knowledge and how to do business in African countries, how to bring up procurement, public procurement, to the spotlight, and bringing sustainability and other diversity actions onto the floor. That's what Kai really brings in. Kai, if you're there, if you could just say hi. Okay, I'll move to the third speaker. Very, very accomplished leader. All 3 of them, I would say. She's master's in economics from Delhi, D School, and then have been an authority and have been helping India, I would say, in the pivotal role of moving towards renewable energy. Has accomplished first of its kind, globally funded by World Bank, solar project, and also having battery ecosystem for storage. A renowned person on diverse renewable energies, not only solar but hydro and other parts of green energies. That's what Surabhi Goyal brings some from World Bank for us. Thank you, Surabhi.
Thank you, Sundar.
Thank you. I think we can start the discussion, if I'm not wrong, right? Okay, let me start with probably, Kai, you worked in all this, Asian, as well as you come from background of European. That's where you really led or you originated from. I want to understand if we talked about a lot of theories since morning, starting from Mr. Batra, starting with what are the possibilities. And you have done all of this on ground. Would you like to share some examples, real world examples involving circular economy and how it's really impacting the change from a procurement and supply chain point of view?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what I would like to share today is a little bit what we are doing in Southeast Asia. So I'm working in the Asia Pacific region in 9 countries, supporting green certification of products through eco-label and services. And I'm also supporting these countries in developing green public procurement in order to basically boost markets for for these products. Of course, this is very different. The countries that we are working in are responding to the different development levels of the countries. Some of them just start and they need GBP policies and they need legislative changes. Some of them don't have eco labels yet. Some of them are advancing towards very complex procurement processes, such as green pipe procurement for the work sector, and electronic M&E system and the like. You asked me specifically about a practical example, and this is why I've basically come up with this very quick presentation, just 3 slides, don't worry, won't be lengthy. It's just, before I start to dive into the practical thing, let me talk about circularity a second. I think we have to understand that there are 4 dimensions which how to systemically address circular economy. And these are quite important to understand because we have to understand that they are also in a hierarchy. The first hierarchy level is to make the whole thing better. And that can be done through our procurement processes. And I think later on I will come also to a solution how to do this. What we are doing here in Southeast Asia is more related to the second dimension, and that is leaner, optimizing products, bringing better products which have a better capacity on the market, and the greener, being more sustainable, and also probably being locally manufactured in order to produce more local jobs. So the example that I would like to bring forward is that we have to bring environmental issues together with green procurement. And I was very happy that the question came up to Marcus from UNOPS that how do you actually do this with the green procurement? And he has mentioned labeling. Labeling ultimately is an underrated system because especially if you're talking about credible labels, India, for example, has many credible labels. There is, for example, the Green Choice or Green Choice India. And then you have also other labels like the energy rating labels, which are credible label. And these labels basically say, yes, this product is superior to the other product. And it provides the procurer the possibilities to put technical specification into the process of procurement. And that's very important because most procurers don't understand what actually green means and what sustainability means. And that's where the environmental part on the left side comes in. It basically, for example, you have carbon reduction labels. It basically brings in the dimension of CO2. It provides alternative energy. Nowadays, the labels are expanding towards biodiversity, for example, when it comes to wood products and so on. So I think on the one hand side, you have the labels. And then on the other side, you have, of course, the procurement aspects, which are very important. And here we are talking to many procurers, so I don't have to repeat it. But you have these principles, accountability, legality, competition, and so on, that you have to basically take into consideration. the eco-labels can build the bridge. And now I'm coming to the practical example. And this was a very simple example from Malaysia. And I'm quite proud of that, how we have done this. In this one, we have tried 4 different dimensions of innovations. In a nutshell, what we did, it is hundreds of lamps, traditional sodium-based lamps, have been changed to LED lamps. So that's not a no-brainer. But what's important is we have used these innovations, which I would like to introduce very quickly. First, we have introduced CE financing. So we have tested different mechanisms for leasing and energy performance contracting to see what kind of infrastructure how can this public infrastructure actually be paid by the private sector? Because you can imagine that here among us don't have the money to change all their sodium based outdoor lightings. So they basically need private sector investments. And through the leasing system or the energy performance contracting, we have brought in private sector investments in public infrastructure. The second one is we used circular economy in the utilization. So one of the 5 pilot projects had installed dynamic dimming. That means that if there is no car, you don't need light. And only if there is a car, the light switches on. This has reduced energy consumption by another 30%. And this was quite intensive also for the cost recovery. Then the third circular economy aspect we use is the circular economy standards. I've already mentioned type 1 eco-label. So the institution that is responsible for this in Malaysia has developed together with us standards of what is a green light, street light. And these standards have been received an eco-label. And nowadays this eco-label exists, and this eco-label has been used one-to-one for green procurement. And that has basically led to certification systems. And last, we have used circular economy during the tendering evaluation. And here, I think already Markus has mentioned life cycle costing during his speech. Very important that we basically checked not only the price, but we have checked the whole lifetime. And that basically has provided us with a good tender. Now, the outcome, the impact of this very tangible project is that nowadays the Ministry of Finance of Malaysia said we would like to have this everywhere in Malaysia. And they are now rolling this out at a light speed. The second impact, very important, and I would like to also here highlight this, is that nowadays these SMEs who have worked on these, meeting these standards have a drastic advantage in the Southeast Asian markets to sell their lights, because nowadays they are very advanced. They were pushed through this mechanism for innovation. And this innovation mechanism has managed them to go beyond their normal business as usual. And nowadays they're exporting to Indonesia, who would like to copy the system. So this is really also industry politics by the purest. We have calculation on how much greenhouse gas and energy we have saved on this, but this would take too long here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very insightful, Kai. Appreciate it. I will hold you there. We'll start the next question once I'm done with Surabhi Goyal, and we'll pick that thread from exactly where you left. So Surabhi, welcome again. Surabhi, I want to, since you come from renewable energy, and we within India have done a commendable job, what we need to accomplish when by 2030 we've already accomplished, and we are far reaching on the renewable energy. Congratulations to you and to the government of India. Now I want to bring the attention to HVDC, high voltage direct current. I understand that our government has got a strategic view of we becoming somebody to provide power to the world. That's a very ambitious thought, and I feel that the transmitting high voltage direct current, right, long distance transmission lines are crucial. Not only if we probably don't even have the same exact manufacturing in India, probably we have a long way to catch up, even from starting from manufacturing and then moving towards distribution and laying and so on and so forth. It's a very fascinating and it can create enormous job opportunities, and it can put really, put India into the global medal. I want to have your view on what's your insight and the mix of greening of countries, how it's going about. I want to, we'd like to hear your perspective.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sundar. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
So this is a very valid, kind of an intervention in the energy sector. So I would just step back a bit and, just advise about how India has evolved over the time. So transmission lines are very important because you have generation projects on one part of the country, whereas the demand of the consumers are coming from somewhere else. So you need to really transmit the power so that your transmission losses are lowest minimal, right? In that context, are these high voltage lines being developed? So when we were talking about, for instance, if I take a specific example of India, majority of the thermal power stations were coming like about 3 4 decades ago towards the eastern coast, whereas the demand were coming in the northern, western, southern. So a lot of such kind of transmission lines were laid during this entire development phase. And gradually we saw that as more and more generation projects are coming, the right of way is becoming an issue. And hence you need to keep on increasing the capacities or the voltage levels of these transmission lines. So at this moment, for instance, there are multiple voltage levels across which a country can transmit the power: 400, 765, for instance, 800 plus minus, DC lines. And then you have HVDC lines, which you have just spoken about. In fact, there is ultra high voltage DC lines as well that India has pioneered on and World Bank has supported. So these transmission lines are very important because even if you talk about the renewable energy which is coming in, say, west coast and southern coast, all of that needs to be evacuated. The regions around these generation projects don't need as much of renewable energy, but the other parts of the country as well. So these transmission lines are playing a very critical role. And increasingly, we are facing one peculiar challenge. Earlier, it was much easier for transmission lines to build up. But because India is one of the most populous countries and land has high opportunity cost, so laying these transmission lines are becoming more and more challenging. What used to take about 2 years, now it actually takes sometimes 4 years, sometimes 6 years. And sometimes even in one of our projects also, we have seen that all the transmission towers are there, but the line is not there because just last two towers are not yet connected. So all this is very important from the perspective of how we need to take it forward, but also considering the environmental social considerations. Now, one important thing is that about what India is positioning themselves as one sun, one world, one grid. So what the objective of that is that sun never sets. If you look globally, somewhere the sun is up always. So the objective is that how we can leverage on each other's solar resources and provide the solar energy to those countries where the demand is higher at that point in time, which is like what I was telling in the context of India, that from one region, you need to transmit power to the other region where the demand centers are more. Similar is the concept here. However, evacuating power and transmitting power over long distances require really high voltage lines, what you just spoke about. So gradually what we are seeing, there has been a lot of, developments happening in this space, but because a lot of regions and a lot of countries within those regions are, party to it. So there are geopolitical reasons which sometimes set you back. But when you talk about, in India, these transmission lines which have come up, there have been like 1400 kilometers equivalent line carrying almost the load of Delhi's peak demand power supply, 6 gigawatts, for instance, between Champa in Chhattisgarh and Kurukshetra in Haryana. So, the utility of these HVDC lines or ultra HVDC lines, because you need only one wire to carry the entire load, which reduces your requirement of the land, which reduces your, multiple laying of the transmission lines efforts, etc. So it is very, very critical. The other thing which is equally important to be considered is that, the procurement side of the thing. Certain technologies are being developed in many countries, but when you as a country are investing in it, how would you ensure your reliance is also sustainable? You may want to have, say, ultra high voltage lines here in the country, but if you don't have repairs and maintenance facilities, one transformer breaks down and you are gone for 3-4 months, which means like entire region may go down. So hence, when we were working with Power Grid, and Power Grid, for everybody's information, a central transmission network company in the country, which is laying the central or the federal level grid. Now it has opened up for the private sector as well. But when we were working with Power Grid in those days, before it was opened up, we ensured that initial few lines, okay, first to test the interest of the technology, but then on the procurement side, Power Grid emphasized, no, we really want the operations facilities to be there. So the tender documents started to reflect the same, that the players who have an intention or have already set up or thought about setting up a facility in the country will be eligible for the tender or will be preferred over other bidders. So what it gave, it started with a soft kind of an approach, but then it became a criteria, a must requirement. It led to the development of 765 kV, for instance, kilowatts, market to develop. A lot of technology solution providers came up, they set up their shops. Now O&M facilities are very accessible. So I think when we are looking for these newer technologies, the procurement becomes equally important in how you can deepen it, how you can cut short the O&M time, and how you can turn around the sector in a much faster manner. So I'll take a pause here. Sundar, back to you.
Thank you, Survi. I think very insightful. You also, in a way, touched upon that these are all new green jobs what we can create, and you also touched upon how do we do the maintenance and the other management part of it. All that is absolutely a great opportunity to. I'll take up same thread and Kai, where we left about the Malaysian projects. I want you to talk about what are the challenges which you really made, and how did you went about implementing those aspects? I'm sure it's not easy. I mean, we heard from Marcus and others, right? What are the challenges which we really face, and market is not ready or the supplier is not aware about it, all of this, right? You need to work towards creating an environment and make people even aware. So we would like to hear, your experience, because learning a lesson out of that is very important for everybody to practice.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have to distinguish between countries that are just starting and countries which are more advanced. And India is certainly a country that is more advanced, but still I would like to start with countries, one of your neighbors, who is basically just starting. And I'm talking of the small countries of Bhutan. And Bhutan has a reputation for having in generally a very low carbon lifestyle, and the country is very low carbon. And but it faces a lot of challenges, being squeezed between two major exporters in the world, India and China. And basically a lot of goods are coming into Bhutan and their own economy is crippled. So so they wanted to come up with a label, and a label that basically allows them to distinguish themselves from other products. And this was not really feasible in a very little industrialized country. So they did a very smart move, which I liked very much, is they used their existing system. They built on existing systems, and they used the Bhutan standard certification processes and added voluntary green criteria on it for selected products and certifications. For example, they used the example of green cement because they have energy coming from the water, from the Andes. That means basically very cheap and clean energy. And now they can produce mainly carbon neutral cement and can sell this carbon neutral cement by also prioritizing them in public tenders. So I think this kind of, let's say, smart moves on how to get around in this reform world is very important. But let's go to the countries more important, like India, who are very advanced in many aspects. Here, the whole challenge is about scale and making it mandatory. And you have mentioned, how do we get really the market to scale up? How do we basically get things moving faster? And here, I think one or some of the experiences that we had is in scaling green pipe procurement, especially in the whole sector, is by the first would be leadership. And the leadership is the most important. And here we're talking really about, if possible, the Central Procurement Agency or even the Ministry of Finance supporting provincial and subnational governments to basically scale green pipe procurement by, for example, issuing circulars or by developing a centralized e-procurement platform where tenders are pre-done. I give you the example from Korea. I like Korea as really the champion in the world when it comes to green pipe procurement. They're using their two eco-labels that they have in the country by developing a product database, a catalog if you want to, and then they're doing pre-tenders in this from the green market tenders, and then these framework contracts are going down into the e-catalog. And then basically every procurer in the country can just buy from the pre-selected green products. By this, they have 100% of their entire procurement process green. I'm coming from Germany. In Germany, this is not possible because we have a very decentralized system. So this is not possible. There, everybody has to learn it. But it's much more easier also in countries which are decentralized. If you have something like a circular from the Ministry of Finance, which basically says, please use these green technical specifications and allow, the verification if these green technical specifications have been met by this and this and this and this label. So this is like a much easier process, but scale is a very important one. Another very important aspect is, and very difficult aspect is challenging, is monitoring. Again, we can go to Korea and see beautifully integrated, vertically integrated, basically all the procurement processes can be tracked, and they have now automatic impact calculation in regards to cost savings and also in regard to greenhouse gas emission attached to it. Or they're going to do this now. This is not possible in all the countries, but I think it is a very important thing that we start with electronic system, M&E systems, because here in Southeast Asia, a lot of the M&E system have been paper-based, and procurers are not really, are kind of reluctant to report on it, and what to report is very difficult. So it's important to make it easy. Again, the idea of having a centralized catalog or general catalog is very important. And we have seen that now in Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have one of the procurement catalog is a green catalog issued by the Ministry of Environment. And in there, directly, you just tag if you have procured from that. And then automatically, we hope in the future, we can calculate the GBP impacts, including but this is very important. We have.
It looks like Germany has already heard you. You're saying that finance guys hard to make them convinced, so they brought in CSRD and ESRD as a reporting standard moving forward, probably. Just to make it a little lighter.
True.
Okay, so Ravi, I want to take what Kai really told in terms of how we went about creating new market and the challenges what we really faced. In all of this, innovation is very important, and probably it's the centerpiece of whole of sustainability or the next gen procurement or next gen supply chain. Innovation is really key. I want to understand this huge opportunity out there, and I want, from your experience, the innovating model, which is the best, and what's going on, what's the future direction looks like. If you could throw some light on around that, and not to you can probably take references of how it's going to help the Indian cement industry, because Kai talked about the next door neighbor using cement. This is a green cement, and there's a steel. There's a huge CBAC which is there starting 2026, which is putting restrictions for India to export into Europe. maybe I think the renewable energy, the whole ecosystem, including green hydrogen, is the savior. Want to hear from you.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid question. I always say that green hydrogen is like hot potato these days. No discussion is complete without referencing green hydrogen or its derivatives, right?
Yeah, true, true.
So, yeah, we all are banking heavily on it. It's like one of the strongest tools in the toolkits to decarbonize hard to abate industries. And it's not just on the paper though. And it's like when we are communicating with the market, with the stakeholders, we do see real action happening on the ground. And it's not limited geographically. It's across the world that we are seeing that a lot of investments, a lot of efforts are being made towards adopting green hydrogen. But let me step back a bit and just to start, on your first question or first part of your question about the innovations. So, over like I have almost like 2 decades of experience. Of that, I've seen that the last 1 decade has been phenomenal in terms of the dynamism that the sector has. So I come from energy sector, so I will most likely, wrap around my interventions around that sector. We started somewhere around 2010 with standalone solar, still fledgling. By 2014, it started to pick up. 2017, it became at cost parity with the fossil fuel-based power projects. The uptake of renewable energy started to go up, and then we started to face challenges in the grid because more renewable energy means more variability, more challenges for the grid stability. Then started to think about hybrid projects where this, wind with solar projects, battery storage started to come into more forefront. And then when we moved further beyond it, pump storage, which was like an orphan child till few years ago, all of a sudden it has become the most dear child for everybody. And everybody wants to do pump storage. Similarly, when you talk about, energy storage, beyond batteries, lot of technologies are coming to the forefront. So it's the dynamism is the word of the day for energy sector. Every new technology is being produced, is being developed in the labs, it's being piloted, and then taking up to the commercial level. Lot of new opportunities for the startups and everybody's coming up. Now, this is, I think, the new future because as we look forward, as Kai was mentioning, digitization is going to become even more important. Our consumers are becoming prosumers with electric vehicle, with solar rooftop. So digitization has to be very important, though the skill set is a big challenge. Majority of the utilities think that they are civil engineers, mechanical engineers can become IT experts. I'm sorry to say, it's good to have people labeled as IT experts, but they cannot be IT experts. So we really need that skill set. Now, going back to what you were mentioning about the second part of the question is the hard to abate, cement, steel. Yes, green hydrogen and its derivatives are very promising. We have seen that, because the tariffs have come down at so low levels, that green hydrogen has started to make more sense for the people to adopt. Still, green hydrogen is almost 2 to 3 times more expensive than gray hydrogen. And this is not new only for gray hydrogen or green hydrogen. It has been throughout. Solar versus fossil fuel, we saw. Similarly, electric vehicles versus ICE engines, we saw. And now we are seeing the same battle between gray and green hydrogen. So there have to be policy measures which have to be taken forward. And when we talk about a demand size, because this entire green hydrogen ammonia story is quite large, quite expansive. So I'll focus majority on the demand side because that is what the question is also about. The demand side will play a very important role to give signals to the investors to come and set up their projects. We have been interacting with many players. They all are sitting by the fence, waiting for the announcements to come. As soon as Solar Energy Corporation of India, the nodal agency for promoting RE and green hydrogen in the country, came up with the ammonia tenders, people were so excited. They started announcing a lot of projects, and they all are flushing more and more investments into the ammonia projects. So demand side signals are very important. And when we talk about demand side signals, export oriented as well as domestic demand, both are equally important. Now, some of these sectors like steel, you talk about, a cement, their investments go up to 25, 30 years. So you really need to sensitize these investors that, you need to make your goals available to be ready, but they need to be sustainable as well. What you are investing now will be there for 25 years. Do you want to lock in your investments, which no longer may be required 10 years down the line? People don't understand, but this is what the awareness creation is about. Now, hydrogen and its derivative has a huge potential, majority in the steel, to some extent in cement, but cement will more go towards CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. But beyond steel, aviation is another emerging sector. Long haul trucks is another application. Fertilizers, of course, that is already being seen in the Indian market. Refineries already, all oil refineries have started to come up with their tenders for co-location of green hydrogen production. So we are seeing a lot of action on the ground happening. Now, most important part is that the storage and transmission, because you really need, again, it becomes, demand and supply center. Storage and transportation of green hydrogen is still a bigger problem. So if your cement project is somewhere, very far away from where the green hydrogen is being produced, by the time you store and transport, it might be 5 times the cost. So you really need to think about how you can co-locate these facilities which can provide directly to these consumers in the vicinity. And hence, for instance, Government of India and likewise in Europe, we are seeing more green hydrogen hubs or valleys being announced, so that the storage and transportation costs can be brought down to the minimal. Also, what is very important is that green hydrogen and its derivatives are very versatile. They are having a lot of applications from chemical industries to glass production to a lot of other. So it's important that when we are looking at the investments, which are those pockets of demand where there is a win-win situation for the consumer and for the producers. We see a couple of commercial projects have already come up in India. And when we speak to them, they say, we are not looking at fertilizer, we are not looking at refineries, we are not looking at aviation and long, far-sighted kind of industries. Our industry base is generally chemical industries, and they're very disaggregated, paying much higher than what green hydrogen costs them, and they want to go net zero, but they don't know how. And there is where we step in. So you really, when you are looking at the procurement aspects also of it, you need to bring that matchmaking. Where are those demand centers who are willing to pay, build on that, get the investments, build economies of scale, bring down the cost, open up the market. So this is how I see that the things will go forward. But yeah, I can keep on speaking for another hour on it. So,
I
back to you,
think
Sun.
this conversation can really go on probably for a day. I think we need to ask the uh, organizers to offer probably a much larger time zone for us to discuss. One important aspect, right? I feel that you talked about demand. I feel that it is the job of each and every procurement guy to go and ask out there in the market to the vendor, because that's when the requirement will be there and requirement will follow the money. That's when people will start investing money in those new technologies, and that's when innovation can really happen. I really asked a lot of questions, but I won't be doing a justice without asking Kai for he comes from a construction background, and I actually wanted to talk about more on the ecosystem of putting what to say environment ecosystem in mind. But I'm really short of time, and Annie is in back saying, hey, up, I mean, we need to ask some question to the audience. We won't be doing it justice, sorry, but Mr. Batra, maybe we need more time next time. Annie, over to you. Have you got any question?
Well,
We have
thank
a
you,
lot more to
Sundri-san.
ask otherwise. Okay.
No, we have. Like our audiences are very active on our chat box. So I would like to first thank Sundri-san and all our esteemed panelists. So I'll start with the questioning. So, we're talking about procurement team here. So because a lot of human labor is going on in the procurement team. So we want to so there's a question who wants how to prioritize mental health, because it is also essential for sustainable society. So under ESG vendors, hello.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. Annie, go
So
ahead.
under ESG vendors who overwork employees, leading to undue stress, should be scrutinized in the sourcing process and evaluate compassionate and supportive work environment. So what is your view on it? And how can employees like reduce their stress working in procurement?
Kay can write a book on this. Okay, I can tell you on behalf of Kay. So many things happened in Malaysia, even when COVID happened, about the gloves which they exported and so on and so forth. Kay, over to you. I will be doing injustice if I answer.
I have to admit, I think when I see my world, I see the answer would be digitalization. Digitalization makes all our life much easier. And we can maybe, hopefully, use this more efficient work and convert this more efficient work into more free time for employees. But that would be a little bit my answer to this. I'm sorry, I'm not working at the level of the procurers normally.
Yeah,
May I
this.
come in? Yeah.
Yeah, please, Surbi. I mean, just to reiterate, this question has come keeping the Indian audience in mind, the current things, what people are discussing right now. It's very hot right now in India. I think as a society, if you ask me, we need to elevate ourselves to the next level, understanding this mental health as prime important. And S plays a very important role in every organization. That's an emphasis which really brings it. Yeah, over to you, Surbi, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So probably not directly related to the mental health. Probably the procurement aspects can't go deeper into the mental and psychological, benefits capture. But the thing is that when we talk to our clients and our procurement methods, when we look at, we try to ensure that all the labor laws are followed of the country, which means that, there are defined number of hours, defined number of rest breaks. If there are hot areas, then you need to provide the shade, nice resting arrangements with a raised bed with fans, light, proper lights, toilet facilities, etc. So this is what we from the bank side at least try to emphasize upon whenever we have our routine meetings. We ensure that we go to the site, we go to the labor camps to see that if these are being followed or not, and then we have dedicated social teams, and we request even the clients to have dedicated social teams to be appointed even at the headquarters, but also at the site offices to take care of these aspects. So, this is how we are trying our little bit in this entire game of the things. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Annie,
Well,
what is
thank
the
you,
next question?
Survi. I think any tips and bits in reducing the stress or, overseeing the procurement process will help in reducing the work stresses. So, over to my second question. So, what strategies can be employed to manage and reduce cost in the procurement of transmission equipment and services?
So, strategies all depend upon the level of acceptance or maturity of a technology. So what we have seen that some of the technologies or the voltage levels have become standard, like 400 kVs and 765 kVs. So there, the optimization of the cost becomes in how you package the projects. If the bigger packages are there, then you may have different kind of bidders coming in for it. If you have like broken it into much smaller packages, you might be able to tap into the domestically grown bidders also. So it all depends on the terrain, where the location is, what kind of competition you do see in the market, whether you need international expertise, whether you need the optimization across the board, interoperability issues are there. So the packaging has to be very site specific and scheme specific, which will then determine that how we can optimize on the cost. For the newer technologies, R&D and skill set, very important. As India, we don't spend much on R&D. And that is why we rely majority of the other countries to come up with that kind of commercial levels. And then we start to adopt. And then our procurement rules and guidelines start to adapt to it so that how these technologies can have domestic, manufacturing or service capabilities. So how we can invest more on R&D to bring down the cost, economies of scale, indigenization, there is where some of the solutions for the optimization of the newer technologies lie.
Annie, that question can be answered the whole day. I mean, there's so much of challenge around that. I mean, we talked about green, hydrogen, supply chain related aspect. There could be transmission loss of as big as 65% if you don't do this properly. So it's like it's a very vast subject. You got to go in detail.
Okay. So then let's quickly switch to our next question. What are the best practices for monitoring and reporting on supplier performance in these areas? I know the questions are very open-ended and they could be very like, we can actually go in detail to it, but maybe like, couple of best practices like that people can use in their everyday routine.
See, what I have seen in my experience is a lot of these EcoVadis and other certificates which are available. People can use that. Otherwise, what I have seen is people using their own questionnaires specific to the category, using AI to analyze and bring more insights. Because if you ask the same question twice or thrice, it could be that there is some distinction. That's why AI smartly picks it up. There is some whereas there seems to be some anomaly there. You can go and pick that up, and those kind of newer technologies adoption has come in, and that's how people are managing. It's a very bigger scope, and there are a lot of rules and regulations which have come around the world, specifically in Europe, which has to be followed. And that's where, and this cannot be done without digitizing. I'm a big advocate of digitizing. So it's like procurement has to now tie itself very closely with digitization and sustainability. This will get a seat on the table for all procurement professionals around the world, be it on the board, to drive the strategy of the company, because metal and other prices are going to go up. So your 6R strategy has to be implemented. So it's like, it's our time. Let me tell you very simple in one word. It's our time. We got to come and play in the party. Mr. Batra, I think maybe last word from you. It's already time up.
Okay, I think I'll be certainly touching on this point around, because what you said rightly around digitalization is a must, particularly when we want to look at the scope 3 carbon footprint.
Yeah.
If I want to see the scope 3 carbon footprint, let's say I'm a public buyer, I'm getting two suppliers. One supplier is basically a trader. That guy will say my carbon footprints are 0. Other one is the one who's buying from someone, who's basically manufacturing himself, and then something from tier 2, tier 3 supplier. So if I want to see all the touch points in the chain of procurement, I think there is no way out without getting into AI. And that's what morning I think, and I talked about the blockchain. I think the blockchain is also picking up now. If I'm taking one project we are doing for Chhattisgarh, aluminium plant, they make 1 million ton aluminium. And they use 5 million tons of bauxite. So 4 million is a wastage.
I see.
And that 4 million wastage I have seen myself. My goodness, that's one has to convert how we make best use of bauxite, the wastage part. So wastage has to be seen around, water wastage has to be seen around. It's very exciting, areas around. I think I'll certainly touch one case study in my half an hour next one.
Thank you.
So kind of.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Kai. And, Surabhi, it was very fascinating.
Yeah.
Time
Sorry to
really
interrupt.
flew off.
Thanks to all of you, Surbi. So kind of you, Kai. So kind of you. And
Thank you so much, sir.
You guys are wonderful. Now it'll be difficult for me to touch up some parts. Let me try.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, Surbi, you want to say something? Or should I go ahead?
Well,
Nothing.
we had like one specific question for Miss Surbi, where one of a person in the audience want to know like what the World Bank is doing to support female entrepreneurs in the renewable energy sector.
And that's a very good question. So in South Asia region, we have started an initiative called V Power, WEPOWER, V Power, in which we are trying to partner with some of the entities, power sector utilities, to develop the trajectories for female workforce. So we are not directly saying that these females will go out and become the entrepreneurs. So that is something which probably we have not directly looked into, but within the various utilities, be it public or private sector, we are trying to make it easier for the women folk to come forward, take more opportunities in the engineering segment, because what we have seen that majority of the women either are in administrative departments like HR, etc., or finance, or some office work which is in headquarters. But engineering is very, very man-dominated field. So this is what our engagement has been for last many years across the 8 countries in the South Asia region, to bring women folk into the center stage, to promote the women-friendly culture, ecosystem, policies, so that during maternity leave and when they come back, how these women folk can be provided an opportunity to ease their workload and get back into the mainstream. If they are working till late, would there be facilities to drop them back? So it depends on utility to utility and what they want to provide and what are their own goals. But we partner with them and we try to bring certain commitments onto the table, which are not like legal commitments, but annual level they provide us with the commitments, their own commitments, which we try to monitor on quarterly basis, so that they reflect upon it and then they get onto the right track to achieve their own targets. But so far it has worked out very beautifully. Some of the entities like Power Grid and Tata Power have already achieved like good results. And we hope that more partners come into the fold so that we can promote it further. But hopefully we'll do something for women entrepreneurs and to promote them sometime soon. But that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Well, that sounds lovely, Ms. Surbi. So I would like to thank you to Mr. Sundaresan for moderating such an insightful discussion, and to all our panelists for sharing their expertise. The diversity of perspectives you brought to this conversation is truly valuable.
Thank you
Now,
very much.
thank you. Thank